Hello and happy Tuesday, March 4th, 2025. It is the beginning of March Madness Month and Fat Tuesday, in fact, today. I'd like to welcome all of you to the webinar masterclass today that's going to be on Amplify Your Impact as a Leader with Conviction. My name is Rhonda Petit. For those of you who don't know me, I am a best-selling author, professional speaker, and CEO of 3x5 Coaching, where we help sales leaders, specifically in med tech, inspire the fire within their sales teams and answer their calling as a leader to lead the change and create impact in the marketplace. And I want to welcome everyone here. Thank you so much for signing up from all over the world, wherever you signed up from, whether you're watching this live now or whether you're watching the replay. I just want to welcome you and thank you for attending. I've got a good piece of information today that I think is going to really help you get off to a great start with your team and make 2025 one of the best golden years of your leadership career. So with that, just to give you a background on my story, for those of you who don't know, I started in commercial sales, B2B sales, at the age of 21, selling chemicals for a company called J.T. Baker, who today is known as Avantar, and then moved into the molecular genetics space with companies like Applied Biosystems, worked for companies like Beckman Coulter, and then a lot of small startup companies and diagnostic companies before I ended my entrepreneur career and started my entrepreneur career. And I'm on a mission to bring back to corporate culture a collaboration, creativity, imagination, and lots of fun, because I think sales is the greatest career that you can have. And when you really have your team, your sales team engaged and productivity is at high, there's nothing like that feeling of excitement of coming to work, and that feeling of trusting everyone in your organization to do something really big and really exciting that's going to leave a legacy of impact. And so if that resonates with you, you're in the right place. And I'm going to talk today about impact specifically because it's part of my message, is that, we've been trained a lot in our careers, or at least for me. I used to go after results all the time. I was known as Results Rhonda. And results are great, and companies want results. When you're in a sales position, it's 4 quarters and it's all about the results and the score. But I think as a leader, as a sales leader, the bigger thing is about the impact and the impression that you leave on people as far as a legacy. And when you see the potential and the capability in others, and you help to bring more of that potential to the surface, you create amazing impact, not only for your team and your company, but also for the customers that you serve. So we're going to talk about impact today so that you can make this year and this March Madness full of impact and really get your plans and gears together so that you can have a lot of collaboration, excitement, and fun in your organization this year, and not be in a state so much of stress and chaos. Okay. So with that, let me bring to the stage some information. Just to reiterate, you are here at the Amplify Your Impact with Conviction Masterclass. And really, this profit plan series that I do, and for those of you who are new, or if you haven't been to these before, every single month, the first Tuesday of the month, you can be guaranteed that I'll be putting on a webinar class around the profit plan. And the profit plan really has some basic core principles that I just want to set from a premise before we start, in the fact that at least I believe that business is in business to provide customers with solutions to problems. And when the components of a real profit plan to create and keep a business in business has to do with the elements of the people, because a business is not a business, a brick and mortar is not a business. It's the people within the organization that create the business. And those people have processes, and if those processes are aligned with the goals and what they're trying to accomplish, those processes become a source of mastery and momentum, because the processes, if they're configured to back from the goal that you're trying to achieve, and you really put those new habit patterns in place, you really can pick up a lot of momentum. And then as our job in terms of going to the marketplace is to create value. So the people and the processes within the organization are creating assets. Assets are valuable solutions that customers want to buy. And then, as a result of providing that value, you create profits. So if we focus as leaders on how we can make high impact profit players and put in, robust processes that are going to help us continually create new assets, and assets are always for a future return, we're going to have a consistent amount of profits that are going to make our business sustainable, not just profitable in only for a few years. So if you're interested in sustainability and the longevity of playing an infinite game with your business, you're in the right place. Now, I've seen, some of you might have seen some posts that I put out a couple weeks ago, but there's a book by Daniel Priestley, and he talks about the fact that income follows assets. And isn't that funny that, what we just showed is that it all starts with people. The people put processes in place, and then through their creativity, they are creating assets, ways to solve customers' problems. And that results in a profit, and then they keep going back to the people to find new solutions and stay ahead of the next, being ready for the next problem that our customers are going to have. So I'll give you an example. I had the pleasure of working in Applied Biosystems during the rage of the Human Genome Project, and that company was a blast to work in. And one of the reasons why, and one of the reasons for their great success, was that they always had one foot in the present and one foot in the future. And so what do I mean by that? So if you're in the med tech industry or you know anything about genomics, the first thing that they did was they automated sequencing processes. So they took something that was manual and they made it into a production unit. They were the first on the planet to really produce a production unit sequencer. And that was the whole speed to having the human genome sequenced faster than it had first been imagined when the grant was established. And while they were doing that and having great success and that was going on, they were always one step ahead. So they were thinking about the next problem and the next asset that they wanted to create to fix the next new problem. Because once you remove a bottleneck in a process, there's always going to be the next problem because maybe you scaled or whatever. And in the case of the genomics at that time, they knew that now that they had all these genes sequenced, that, from a pharmaceutical and, research and healthcare disease states, that people were going to want to know how the genes turned on and off and do a bunch of gene expression. So they created an automated gene expression machine, and they were the first to do that. So they kept coming out to be the first to stay ahead of the problems, and that's why that was a raging success as far as technology goes. So incomes follows assets, and we always want to be thinking about how we can create assets in our business and to keep it sustainable. So if we look at just the basics on assets, which was from Investopedia. I mean, I'm telling you things that you already know, but I'm telling you to repeat them just to kind of bring them forefront in our minds to get us really focused on, how are we going to create this impact this year? So an asset is going to be a resource that's going to have an economic value for an individual, a country, a corporation who owns it. And it has an expectation that comes with that asset that it's going to continually provide future a benefit, right? So it's based in investment for future return. And when you manage assets, you want to know that you're getting assets that are going to continually appreciate, not depreciate, right? So if you're managing assets, you want to acquire, maintain, and trade investments that have potential to grow in value. And again, potential to grow is appreciation. So as assets grow, they appreciate, and that's a good thing because the value keeps going up. So when you're a sales leader, you have a spiritual gift of leading people through leverage, and you can delegate. And your responsibility as a leader has to do with, leveraging your people assets for the getting high performance and engagement from your people assets, but also creativity from your people assets on new ways to think, mastermind, and face challenges and adversity and come up with solutions to problems. Because the more solutions that you solve for people, the more they're going to return, and you're going to have a consistent flow of revenue and cash flow coming into your organization. The processes that you put in place create momentum, because a process, just think of it as a pattern. Everything in life, we have patterns. And in fact, neuroplasticity tells you that 95% of everything you're doing on a daily basis is based upon a pattern that you've adopted. The patterns have set points and they have processes, and those processes yield a result. So when we want to up level our results or change a result, we always have to realize that there is going to need to be an adjustment in process. And as a leader, if you're going to go from 10 million last year to 20 million this year, you've got to know that you're going to have to spend some time on the processes, because the process to generate 20 million is different than the process to generate 10. And then lastly, we want to make sure that we're continually innovating and elevating and coming up with new assets so that we can create impact, right? So how many of you right now have been spending time thinking about how you can create and invest in your assets of your people, your processes, and making sure you're having new asset creation? So give me a yes or no. Just put a Y or a no in the chat. But the more that we leverage those three things, the people, assets, the process, and the asset creation, the more we'll be able to create impact. And I'm going to discuss what impact is, but my question I would ask you before we go into what I want to share with you today is, do you believe right now that your assets have been depreciating or appreciating? So they're either growing in value or they're losing value. And if you have depreciating assets, what are you going to do to turn that around? Because if you're not growing and you're not increasing value from making investments maybe into your team, into their skill sets, into the processes, and into the assets that they're creating, then you're going to have a difficulty keeping that sustainability going. And at the end of the day, it comes down to your roots. What happens inside the roots that you have create the fruits. So if you want to keep a continual, infinite supply of fruits coming into your business to keep it sustainable and going long term, you want to understand that impact is going to require, to make impact in the marketplace, which is what the marketplace pays for, it's going to require your influence, right? And your influence ability is going to require leadership, so that we want to have people want to follow us and take the leadership, so that you're going to be able to activate things like their intrinsic motivation. And then that leadership requires the fact that you're visible on a regular basis with the people, understanding what's in the way, what are the problems, and how you can help them get those obstacles out of the way, so that they can keep the momentum going. Because anytime that if an object's in, we're all in science, right? So if an object's in motion, it keeps going in motion, right? But if it gets stopped by something, you can create entropy and have disorder, and you really don't want that. So the visibility and your leadership and your influence are all elements of what kind of an impact you'll be able to create. And that impact that you create is basically the impression that you're having on people's lives, to improve things and improve things like the human condition. I mean, most of us in the healthcare and med tech went into med tech because we wanted to improve the human condition. We were excited about the science. We were excited about the possibility. And we want to make that impact and leave a positive legacy from the work we're doing. So where I want to start today about impact is, if impact is about the impressions that we make in the marketplace, and the impressions that we make in leading people and communicating value and solving problems, I'd like to ask you to ask yourself a serious question about leadership philosophy for you and your organization. And I want you to ask yourself, have you been leading in terms of what you would do for a creature, or have you been leading people to be the creators that they are? And where does this come from? Well, in the first book of the Bible, which is just the Bible talks about creation, right? And there was 3 steps to creation. Step 1 was that the world was created, right? Step 2 was from the earth and the sky, creatures were formed. And step 3 was that human beings were designed with divinity, in the image of the creator, to create, which means our infinite source of assets and possibility comes from the creation ability within every single human being on the planet. And as a leader, when you are able to treat people and remember that people have these God-given gifts and talents, and that they can be really creative, and it's that creative asset of your people assets, your human potential is infinite. So you can never run out of creativity when it's activated. And if you haven't had a lot of impact and momentum going on in your organization, I think it's fair to start at looking at how you have been leading people, and whether it's been leading from the old management philosophy that I was originally taught, which was the carrot and stick, and or leading from leading a bunch of creators and activating things like intrinsic motivation within people that's going to activate that creativity within. And I bring this up, and there's no judgment here, because if you look at the history of management started, in the Industrial Revolution, they started putting together management schools to have people manage people for the work in industrial production. And it was just a theory or a thought, I guess, that they had back then, which was you dangle a carrot, like in sales, like you dangle commission plans and things like them, or you have a stick, behind someone, kind of, because they're going to either go for pain or pleasure, was the original thought. And I'm here to challenge that thought with you today, because I think that's where we miss the mark if we buy into that old philosophy. I think the better philosophy is to remember that, there were 3 steps to creation, and human beings are designed to be creators. They're not creatures. As creators, we have 2 gifts that the creatures don't have. One is we have our mouth, and we can speak words, and the words that we speak into existence matter. They certainly matter in sales presentations, and I'll explain that in a minute. And the other thing that we have is a choice. So we have this ability to look at things and make choices and design our own environment. And I believe that as leaders, when we really activate our ability to lead people as creators, we unlock some magic that can really move mountains and create all kinds of possibilities and excitement and bring fun back to work. And it impacts engagement and productivity, and I'll explain why. So if we go back to looking at the things that create vitality and sustainability in a business, and we look at people, processes, the assets that we're creating, and the amount of profit that we have coming in from those assets, because income's always following assets, you have to ask yourself, from a philosophy of leading, how can we elevate our impact on the people themselves? And, I think the first step is to remember that people are creators, and stop treating them like creatures and start treating them like creators. Looking at processes and trying to find efficiencies of what the habit patterns need to be to attain the goal that you're after, and intentionality behind that goal and meaning for the people, so that there's buy-in to the process. And then in that process, you're creating solutions for customers, which are your assets, and that drives your sustainability and profits. So what is your current state? So for those of you in the chat out there, even if you're watching this as a replay, just type in the chat whether you've got some entropy going on in your organization where momentum has slowed, or whether you have a high state of energy and elevation and you're having fun and everything's great in your organization. So just put entropy or elevation in the chat and let me know what you think, because the state of the energy is something that can make a lot of difference in the impact of what you're doing, because it contributes to momentum. So now some of this stuff, if you are in a state, if you feel that your results and your team has kind of reached a complacency standpoint, you feel some energy, some entropy going on, which is disorder, and things are really not moving along like you would hope, I want to explain to you something that's not your fault. It's not your fault that this silent killer of stress is causing issues in corporate America today. And why I say it's not your fault is that there are, I have a report which I'll invite you guys to read, but there is a silent invasion going on in corporate America today, and it has to do with stress. And the problem with stress is that it activates in people a lot of unconscious triggers and perceptions on the way they view the world. And because it's unconscious, because people don't have awareness that they have these triggers or where they come from, you can have a lot of what they call corporate catabolism happening in your organization. And so my intention today in creating impact is to make you aware of this villain that's unconscious and bring it to your attention so that you can start turning things around for your organization. Because this stress that you can fall into as a leader, a sales leader especially, is very uncomfortable. And it over time, and I'm speaking to those of you, if you're from the age, between 40, by the time you're 60, if you didn't do anything about this, it's going to cost you a heck of a lot more than you think. And so, and the reason it costs a lot is because you can't move entropy, and you can't get a high energy result, which is like high amounts of energy and profits and sustainability in your organization, if you have entropy and disorder coming from stress. And there's in physics states that no high energy result is ever going to flow to a low energy source, right? So if your energetics of your team and everyone right now, with all the transitions that are going on in March of 2025 in the environment, if people's perceptions and their focus is all outside on doom and gloom or confusion or disorder, what that does is it kills your momentum. And if you have something that you can't see, you can't fix it. But if you can see it, and I'm here to tell you you can, and you can find out more in the report that I wrote about how you can. And I'll give you the information to access the report. Once you see something, you can fix it. And so I bring this to your attention because stress and states of stress, what they do with perceptions of the way people see the world, is they can, if stress is there, what it does is it limits your perception so you can't see as wide. And if you have energy that's very high momentum, it expands your vision and you see all kinds of possibilities. So when we get constricted or we're managing a team, and if we don't know if it's affecting us and affecting our team, we're not going to be able to lead them out. Now, the unfortunate news as of the end of 2024 is that engagement in the United States hit its all-time low since 2014, and it's down at 31%. That's something that we need to turn around. And what I want to ask you today is, do you want to be part of the people that are going to lead the change, to embrace change and create impact and lead people out of this mess? Because it's fixable, but the world needs your leadership to do it. Perception is everything, especially in selling. Now here's the problem that perception has. And I'm gonna do my best to explain this to you, how perceptions are formed and what the impact is. And if you really, really get this, you're going to understand influence. And if you understand influence and you understand what other people are going through when I explain this, you're going to understand how to create a turnaround in your organization and also in your sales results. So let me explain how people perceive things. So it's called perception. And like I said, every human being has some unconscious triggered perceptions that they don't even know that they're doing. And when that happens, it's causing entropy. So let's start with a perception, what a perception is. So human beings on the planet, in your organization and your clients, have 2 eyes and 2 ears, and they can see from their physical side as well as their spiritual side. So what happens in influence is people have the eyes and ears, and they see something or they hear something. This could be in your organization. It could be about an organizational change. It could be something in the economy, in the news. It could be something a customer says to them, anything, right? And wherever attention usually follows momentum. So where people's attention goes, their energy flows, and they start to do this perception thing. So what do? So you see and hear something, and you put a frame around it. That's what a perception is. So you frame it. Think of a picture frames like drawing your focus and attention onto something. And when you frame something and you put it in the picture, you create what's called a belief. Now, there's two types of beliefs. You can have a positive belief and you can have a negative belief. Why? Because the law of polarity says, that there's no such thing as a one-sided piece of bread, that there's always opposites, there's duality in everything. So you can have a belief. People will frame what they see in their world either through the lens of faith, which has a positive charge, which is based in trust in themselves and trust in everyone around them, or they will frame it in a negative connotation with a negative charge, which is doubt, which is when you question that you trust yourself or you don't trust others. Okay. So you see or observe something, and we learned from observation from when we were little kids. We would observe mom and dad and whatever. So it's just an observation. It's a human thing. We frame it and we put a belief on it. And then that belief that we create, follow the arrow, creates either a feeling that, this belief, this picture, it creates a picture in our mind, and we say, I can get what I want. And so you can get excited like at Christmas and you have all kinds of anticipation. Or if you frame it in the negative view, you're going to have anxiety because you think you're not going to be able to get what you want. And those thoughts that you have from the picture you form from what you framed is either going to send and travel down to your heart, right? So it's going to travel down into your heart and give you a feeling of either anticipation, yippee, I can't wait. I'm so excited to go sell today. I can't wait to jump out in bed and I'm going to talk to 50 customers and I can't wait. And I'm going to knock my plan, knock the plan right out of the park. Or you have anxiety about something or worry about something. And when anxiety comes in, it constricts you. And what it does is it determines the amount of movement your body's going to make. So if I'm excited and I have my hands are going to feel empowered and excited, my energy is going to be up and the action and the momentum that I'm taking is going to be fast. I'm going to be moving forward, right? If I think I'm not going to get what I want because of how I framed it, my action, the movement of my body is going to be rendered powerless. So you're just going to lose energy. And when you lose that energy, that's when the entropy is created. The object that was in motion gets stopped and it stays there unless something happens to elevate that energy and bring intention back to create new momentum again. So this framing thing that's going on is coming from, it gets elevated in stress. And when the stress happens and the constriction happens, the chances that people are putting a lot of faith in stuff is not as great as it is in doubt until they realize what's unconscious and bring it to the surface, and then they can make a new choice. And when that happens, you can get a different result. But it's all where people's focus is. So what the heck does that have to do with leadership? Well, our jobs, if we're going to influence people, are to draw attention to potential that in turning looking at a situation differently, especially if they go into any state of a doubt. So for example, if you have a sales team and let's say you're reorganizing the whole team and people are framing it like they lost something from yesterday, and they frame it that it's not as good as it was before, our jobs as leaders need to be to help give them the vision of why it's going on, but also reframe it as a possibility to bring more of their capability to the surface, right? So it's like the obstacle's the way, but guess what? You're going to get all these new opportunities because you're going to have all these different skills that you're going to develop as a result of this, or something like that. So our job in influencing is helping people look at the frame in a different way. Now, the words, and this also applies to selling, because if we're selling and the words coming out of our mouth are not creating anticipation, and they're creating some sort of an anxiety for the customer, that's going to render the customer powerless to move. So the question is, how do we do this leadership shift and get the momentum back up where we want in our organization, so we can start having some fun and collaboration and creativity, and bringing in and closing more sales and bringing in new customers? What's going to cause that? Well, it comes down to the impact that we decide that we're going to have on others as leaders. So if you define impact, impact is your influence or the effect that you are having on the people around you with your actions, your words, and your presence. And that impact of you, so if you show up in a stress situation and you're stressed out in front of your team, they're going to pick up on that energy, and that's going to get impressed on them. If you can lift your energy and you can be calm in a state of chaos as a leader, calm and confident, you're going to be in a better place to influence people on a positive pole in terms of their engagement, their productivity, and their creativity. Because again, what we want to do is we want to get people, our teams, connected. We want to increase faith and trust in one another, that no matter how bad the adversity can get, that we can do it, that there's possibility and there's light, because we have each other and we have our creativity to solve problems. And when there's purpose behind what the mission of the company is and the mission of the team's going to be, and people feel like everybody's got each other's backs, you can create unbelievable, unstoppable force and productivity, and get that activity intensified. Not to mention the mind sharing with the creativity to create value for others. And so what you want to do as a leader is inspire the fire in your team, and really activate your intrinsic motivation to get them moving. Now, in the workbook, if you got your workbook that was emailed out to you, I want you to write some words next to these letters in impact to kind of remind you about how you can create impact. So the first thing I always like to tell myself and remind myself is that when you are really good at leadership, that comes with responsibility, and accountability is part of the task, right? And so if we're going to create impact under what I want you to think of, the first things first, is that we want to have influence with integrity. Now, if you look in the biblical books about integrity, integrity is talked about in the fact that we're all connected, and that if we keep our integrity and our word to ourselves and to others, it keeps the connection and the trust really, really high. And so then that enables you as the leader, when you're honest with people and you keep your word, etc., then that elevates your influence with them and brings infinite returns. So in the Bible, I think they say integrity is like a 10 for 1. Like when you do things in integrity, even when it's hard to do, even when it's, you don't want to say what the truth really is, but you just say it anyway, and you explain and lead people with integrity, that really matters. It makes a big impact on them, because now they're seeing for themselves how a leader can have integrity, and then they want to bring the same integrity back to the organization as part of your team. The M in impact is really focusing the team on mastery of skills. So what are the skills and the processes that we can put in place in the investments so that we can bring the skill level up for impact? Because as skill level rises and mastery rises, the ability to do the task becomes much more easier, and the momentum really starts to kick in. It's like the compound effect. When you do the processes that you have to do in the beginning, the new habits, the new habit patterns, it's a little slow start because there's some resistance before it gets the plane off the ground. But once you get it rolling, you really create a lot of momentum. So it's having that investment mentality and that leadership influence mentality to keep people focused on the benefits of the processes and the mastery and how it's going to impact them. Purpose. If we're going to inspire the fire for desire in our teams, we have to understand who they are, but we want to tie what we're doing back to some purpose, because purpose is like the second gear of momentum. When it's like the gear you didn't even know you had that kicks in, because the intention and the purpose of the impact is bigger than the task at hand. And it has so much meaning to it that people are inspired instead of doing something out of logic. So when you tie back to purpose, what you do is you activate the inspiration within, and you're really starting to get that intrinsic motivation going. The A in impact, think of attitude and asset creation. So attitude is mirrored unless mastered, right? It's easy as a leader to be in a positive, happy mood when things are going well. What's not as easy to do is to bring your 10 out of 10 attitude when all the stuff is hitting the fan. And that takes discipline and that takes practice. But when that attitude is strong and you get your people's attitude to become strong and resilient in adversity, that's going to lift the energy of you and the organization and make great impact on your clients as well, because people will gravitate to an energy source, a high energy source. So if your team's going to market and they have a high attitude energy, it's going to draw more people to them. And the other thing about the A to remember if we're going to make impact is that we've always got to be creating assets, creating value for the customer, solving the next problem. And so if we're thinking to keep our attitude up and we're activating that creativity to keep the assets coming, the infinite assets that we can develop, then we're going to keep that momentum and sustainability going. The C in impact is care. And so I put that there because we need to care about our people and have empathy for our people. Number one, we have to realize all people are the same. We all have gifts and we all have blind spots. And some of these triggered responses that your team could be having, in anger or apathy, when something's changing and you're saying, why is this person being so difficult? They have an unconscious triggered response that you could help them figure out so that you can help increase their productivity and help them begin to be part of your positive momentum instead of your negative momentum. And sometimes the other thing that we need to do from care is not just have the empathy, but also acknowledge people and validate what they're feeling, because we can have great intentions for our team. But sometimes we could get going down a path where we're not really aware of the impact that we're making on someone. And sometimes the biggest way to neutralize something that is going maybe in the wrong direction, maybe because they're triggered from something unconscious and they're angry or whatever, is to acknowledge people. Because when we care and we acknowledge and validate what people are saying, including our customers when they're mad, that care really creates impact. Because anytime that somebody is having strong feelings and they get acknowledged and validate, it's like putting a cushion, a cotton ball on it, and just getting them heard is an appreciation in itself that causes connection and trust to build. And then the last thing we have to realize for impact is that no transformation will happen without any invitation. So we want to get our teams to be able to be out believing in the product, believing in what they're doing, believing in the purpose behind it, so that we can cause transformation, because people are going to want to buy and feel like buying when they see transformation for themselves. And so our responsibility is to really encourage that transformation and more of those offers to be extended, more invitations to be given to more clients, so that you can create and generate more agreements and bring more cash flow into the organization. But it's all about the transformation, because we're going to market to solve a problem, and we want to cause a transformation for our customers. And if we're doing that, and we're doing that well, we're going to have lots of an abundance of business to do. So how can we amplify and our impact with conviction? So if you look at the word amplify, the reason why I wanted to say is, emphasize this word, is amplify is increasing the amplitude of vibration. And when you increase the amplitude of vibration, what that does is it sends a powerful force of energy. So it's a very focused force. And when people are focused and the energy is in this high vibe state, it has a high intensity, right? So it becomes really, really powerful. So if you think about impact, you have to ask yourself a question: if I'm going to amplify my impact, how can I increase the intensity level? Well, some of the ways that you can do that is through engagement, because when you elevate the energy of your team and that vibration gets up and they're all zeroed in on the purpose of what they're doing and everybody's all in, that engagement is going to go high, because they've got, a team of individuals working together to really go forward. Productivity goes up when activity intensifies, right? So we can intensify the energy, but then as a result of the energy being intensified, if the activity gets up and increases and moves faster, because income loves speed, the universe loves speed, money loves speed, right? Then your productivity is going to increase, and your leadership ability, the more that you do that, the more that you're looking at your team and saying, hey, you have capability within. I know, Johnny, you're really good at this. And, Sally, you've got these strengths. How do we bring them together, mastermind, come up with some new assets or ways that we're going to be able to address the client's market and really create some more sales and some more influence? So as you recognize people's capability and bring more of that to the surface, your leadership ability is really going to start to accelerate. Now, where does the conviction come in? The conviction comes back to the perception, right? So conviction is a firmly held belief or an opinion. And it's either going to be in a state of faith or doubt. So as leaders, what we want to do is create an extreme sense of faith with our team and anticipation about what we can do together as a team. Faith is all based in trust, right? And if you've got your team and you've had conversations with them one-on-one and discuss their development plans and discuss what's important to them, and you get them in a state where they believe in the company, they believe in you as the leader, they believe in their product, and they believe in the impact that that's going to have on a customer, they're going to be able to hold this really super strong belief for your customers to walk across the bridge to their transformation and do an exchange, because of the conviction, that firmly held belief. That conviction will get everybody out of bed in the morning, moving at a very high speed of intensity and excitement, because conviction And belief, when it's strong like that, changes the energy vibration. It removes any kind of hesitation, and it creates anticipation that causes people to want to connect and move with you. And so your productivity in your exchange is going to go up. Your connection is going to be stronger because of your visibility, and that's going to really amplify your impact. So when you take the word amplify and conviction, the whole thing about the conviction comes down to what we talked about is everything is happening in terms of movement and momentum because of perceptions. If you have an issue with perceptions with your people, the easiest way to deal with that is to focus on changing those perceptions. And your ability to influence and change those perceptions and create anticipation instead of anxiety is the secret on how you're going to lead people through adversity and build resilience with your team. So if you're buying into this, I want you to really think about, do you have an action plan to raise the energetics in the room for your team? And do you have an action plan to really create more conviction, more faith, more belief in your company, the purpose, the product, and the people, so that you can empower your team's next level of impact, of momentum? There is a report that I put together that talks about how you can reverse corporate catabolism, how you can get rid of this unconscious triggered perception that your people go into, or maybe you have yourself. And I invite you, if any of this made sense to you, if you're looking, if you know you have a problem with momentum, if you know you have some entropy, if you know you have some worry and some doubt and some fear in your organization, and people have stagnated, and you want to be the one that turns it all around and makes hay and creates March Madness, at least do yourself a favor and read the report. There's the Gallup poll that was just came out at the end of 2024, so it's only a couple months old, so it's fresh, about engagement, about what the three things are that the leaders today are not providing, and most often they're not providing it to their employees, which is causing the decrease in engagement because the leaders are stressed. I know what it's like to be a leader when the sandwich effect happens, right? You've got the upper people on the top of you pressing down on you, and you're trying to keep your team going. You don't want to have anybody losing their jobs, and you're right in the middle of the squeeze. There's a way out of that, and it has to do with just increasing your awareness. And when you increase your awareness to what's going on, and you understand where these triggered perceptions come from, and there is a tool that you can use very easily to turn this around for your group, then you can start to begin to create change and operate as the leader who's going to lead through change, create impact in a calm, confident manner so that people follow you. And so I encourage all of you who are leaders, who want to make a change, who are tired of being in the stress conundrum and don't want to have the effects of that wear on you in a job for 20 years, and you want to start having some fun at work, to download the report and find out for yourself how you can take the first steps with a very small investment of your time and resources to do it, and turn everything around and get back to having fun at work. Because that's my dream for corporate, is that we change the corporate culture and bring it around and really let our creativity run loose and have a ton of fun selling what we have and causing transformations in the world that matter. So I hope you enjoyed this. If any of you would like to have a conversation with me, let me know. But I invite you to get the report at my new website, which is rhondapetite.com. Again, all you do is go to rhondapetite.com, and right there in the middle, like the second frame down, there is a download form where you can get the report about what leadership stress is costing you. And how you could turn it around for yourself. And if you have questions after you read that report and want to have a call, um, let's schedule a call and discuss it. But other than that, I want to thank you for your time. I encourage you to create some March Madness, go out and amplify your impact with your team and get back to fun at work, collaboration, and really creating, big, hairy, audacious goals to create major results for you and your team in 2025. Have a wonderful day and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thank you for your time.